Right, go on. What's your two questions?
First question.
He's a man.
I'll put them both together.
Yeah.
First question.
Stand there, please, sir.
Is it justified in your Christianity for the Americans and Israelis to kill 165 children and staff, schoolgirls and staff in Minab on the very first day of the bombing of Iran? Second question. Is it justified to kill the head of a religious faith that you do not agree with simply because you think the government that they rule over is wrong? And connected to that then, do you support Pete Hegseth, the US Secretary of War, in his call to re-establish the Zionist or the Israeli religion's temple at the location of the Dome on the Rock that is presently a Muslim under Muslim control?
Okay. Would you object if I answer your questions to the crowd so that everyone can hear? Yeah, you don't think I'm going to be rude if I do that? So the questions are threefold. If I misstate one or miss one out, just jump in and correct it. So the first question is, do I agree with killing civilians and unarmed combatants in war? The answer is, of course, no. Christians believe in a principle called just war, and we also believe in a principle called justice in war, which means that according to the Christian warrior code, which is known as chivalry, you do not wage war against unarmed combatants. And so, if civilians die, they must die by accident, not because they are targeted, ladies and gentlemen. I do want to point out, though, that despite the fact that Christians in Nigeria have been killed in their tens of thousands, my friendly communist here has never once come and asked me about my thoughts about what's happening to Christians in Nigeria, and I suspect that it is because of that mental illness known as no Jews, no news. No Jews, we don't care. If they're black, let them die, so long as we can blame Israel. Now, his second question. Do I believe that it is right to kill a religious leader, a leader of a state, because we disagree with its society? In the way that the question is framed, I would add some nuance. If that leader is persecuting the church, if that leader is killing tens of thousands of his own people, tens of thousands.
Where's the evidence?
Are you interrupting, or do you want an answer to it?
I'm interjecting.
I'll let you come back. If that leader is oppressing his own people, then yes, ladies and gentlemen, those regimes should be toppled, ladies and gentlemen. And so I do believe that the Americans are right to try and liberate the people of Iran from the Iranian regime. And notice, once again, that my friendly communist didn't come and ask me last week about whether he thought it was right that the Iranian regime was killing tens of thousands of its own people. Your third question was, do I believe or support the building of a new Jewish temple on the Dome of the Rock? That was your question, right? And the answer as a Christian is no. And why not? Why? Because Christ establishes the temple in his church, and there is no need for another temple. God providentially destroyed the temple of the Jews in Jerusalem to show that the old covenant was closed, and that therefore the new temple is the church, the people of God. But notice, ladies and gentlemen,
defend the Muslims against the
that my
aggression
friendly
of the
Communist,
Jews to
my friendly
establish
Communist
their temple.
has never come to me, to talk about the plight of Syrian Christians or Pakistani Christians or Egyptian Christians or Ethiopian Christians or Nigerian Christians who are being butchered right now. And I'll tell you why. Because the alt-left suffers from a disease, and that disease is a mental illness. They can only see injustice if they see a Jew. The disease is anti-Semitism, ladies and gentlemen. And that's why he has no concern for anyone unless Israel is involved. Right, do you want to argue?
Have you heard me make a single anti-Semitic remark in my life?
No, not once. No.
Why are you saying that?
Your politics.
Why are you lying?
I'm going to reply.
I've never said anything against the Jews.
Can I reply?
When did I say anything against Jews?
Can I reply?
I've been here since 1985.
No one mentioned
Right.
the Jews
No one can cite me anything
until
where I've ever said anything.
Shall I
this man
reply?
brought them up.
I'm against Israel and the Zionists, not against the Jews.
Shall I reply?
Yeah.
Right, here's the reply. He says he's against Israel and the Zionists. That is his political worldview. On a one-to-one basis, I do not accuse him of anti-Semitism. He'll meet a Jew today and he'll be as friendly to that Jew as he will be to me. But, ladies and gentlemen, his politics is anti-Semitic. And here's why his politics is anti-Semitic.
Because to criticise the Jews
when,
is
ladies and
anti-Semitic.
gentlemen, thousands of Christians are butchered in Nigeria, he has nothing to say. When, ladies and gentlemen, hundreds of thousands of Christians are driven out of Artsakh, Azerbaijan, he has nothing to say. When, ladies and gentlemen, Egyptian Christians suffer anti-Christian pogroms, he has nothing to say. The only time that his passions are ever tickled so that he wants to talk about it is when Israel is involved. And what is distinctive about Israel? It is the only Jewish state in the world. That's why his politics suffers from an anti-Semitic narrative. He doesn't care about justice. All he cares about is villainizing the one Jewish state in the world. Go on.
Oh, you want me to reply? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to reply at that type of character, this has got nothing. Firstly, I wasn't talking about Christians.
I am.
No, but you said I'm anti-Semitic because of my
Your
attitude
politics
to Jews.
is anti-Semitic.
And then you only talked about Christianity.
Your politics is
Now
anti-Semitic.
you're saying my politics is anti-Semitic because I'm
You as
opposed
a
to the state
person
of
aren't.
Israel. Actually, there are many Jews, Orthodox Jews, who do not believe that the state of Israel can exist or should exist short of the return of the Messiah.
Are you wanting
Right.
the destruction
Now,
of Israel?
That's one thing.
Do you want the
Secondly,
destruction of Israel?
The Israelis themselves.
Do you want the destruction of Israel?
The Israelis themselves are doing everything possible either to create a greater Israel and therefore stoke up a religious war across the entire world to defend Israel's interests and the rulers of Israel. And the rulers of Israel, unfortunately, this is where you're confusing the role of Zionism and the role of Judaism. The rulers of Israel, the Zionist rulers of Israel, and their Christian Zionist allies are shaping the fate of the world and driving the world towards disaster, war, and a new Holocaust that has been launched not by the Germans this time, but by the Israelis against the Palestinian people and now against the Muslim world. And the reason I raised the issue of the Israelis promoted by Pete Hegseth to destroy the existing Muslim temple and dome at the Rock in Jerusalem is because if they were to do that, it would cause a religious war going on for centuries, which is what also the killing of Khamenei did. It has created a foundation. It's like killing the Pope. It's like if some Muslim or some Muslim state killed the Pope. That's what the Americans have done. And also blowing up the children. It's like, if it is an accident, it's a monstrous accident. But if it's not an accident, and I suspect it was an accident, somebody is seeking to drag the world, you and I and your children, into war.
Can I reply?
And those people, I tell you, are the same people who are blackmailing Donald Trump with allegations of paedophilia associated with the Epstein files.
Can I reply?
They are blackmailing Trump to drive him to go to war. They even faked
You haven't come here to
assassination
kidnap my cameras and my talk.
on
Let me
Donald
reply.
Trump in order to blackmail and pressurize
Okay, let me
Donald
reply.
Trump into going to war
Let me
on
reply.
behalf of Israel.
Let me reply. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me show you the ignorance of this man. The ignorance. The sheer galling, despicable ignorance. He says we're being dragged into a religious war that will go on for centuries. If this ignoramus knew anything about church history, he would know that it has already been subject to 1,400 years of continuous jihad, where Muslim armies have gone into Christian populations for 1,400 years without interruption, ladies and gentlemen. But, ladies and gentlemen, can he produce one video, one statement, one speech where he has spoken out against that religious war? And that's the point of the modernist, ignorant liberals, is that they, ladies and gentlemen, have no sense of history that goes back beyond Karl Marx and the Enlightenment. They don't know church history. We Christians have suffered a religious war for 1,400 years. From the time of the founding of Muhammad until the present day. He is just upset that finally we have a leader in the West who's willing to bully the bullies and to try and set the Iranian people free, who were colonized by a foreign religion that they didn't want and that they don't want today, ladies and gentlemen. No! And then I'll let you reply. No, ladies and gentlemen. I want to be clear. I'm not here to defend Israel. I'm not here to defend America. I'm a Christian. My cause is the church. I want him to answer me two questions. And I know he's competent to do so because I've debated him before. My first question is, why has he not spoke up and against the 1,400 years of jihad waged against the church? Secondly, why has he not spoke up for Christians who are being butchered in Nigeria? Those are my questions to him. Go on.
You can do it.
Your hatred and bigotry.
The first question revolved around 1,400 years of supposed jihad. In reality, conflict between Christians and Muslims has often been about nations material interests, social groups, not about religion. Religion can be the cover under which a conflict takes place. For example, in Britain, in Britain, during the English Civil War, there was a war between two Christian armies. Those Christian armies were fighting about different visions of their society. So it is with all religion, or most religious wars. The so-called religious war that we have today that I pointed to, the religion is being used as a mechanism to gee up and motivate people who have religious beliefs, whereas actually there is a battle going on about about oil and economic resources and about control of the world. It is not actually a religious war, but many people think it is a religious war, and they will fight on that basis. Because if Donald Trump turns around to you, as he did with Venezuela,
and the second question,
and said to you, this war is about oil, that's why we're going in, you would not send your children to die.
And the second question,
because most Americans do know this is true. They know it's not actually about religion. They know they're being manipulated by the Zionists.
And the second question,
and therefore they have to manipulate them by pretending it's about religion.
And the second question,
well said.
My little knowledge about Nigerian interreligious conflict is based upon the knowledge I have from Nigerian friends. It's not detailed and comprehensive. So I'm not going to claim I know everything about Nigeria. But from what I've been told from my Nigerian friends over the decades, most of the conflict between the Muslims and the Christians on the streets, for example, of Lagos is caused by Christian fundamentalism. That doesn't mean that there are not Muslim fundamentalists and Islamic fundamentalists who don't take
can I reply?
military and terroristic activities, but I am saying from my own knowledge. Now, I'm not going to engage in a debate about Nigeria. There's plenty of people who know about Nigeria far more than me, and I'll even bow down and say Bob probably knows more about Nigeria than I. Therefore, I'm not going to engage on that terrain.
Can I reply?
Much as it may be interesting, and much as I'd be prepared to go away and study and come back another day with knowledge about Nigeria to be able to reply.
Right, let me reply. I want to point out to you what you just heard. A communist lefty obfuscating on real history and the 1400 years of Islamic jihad that we Christians have suffered. As if, ladies and gentlemen, that we Christians don't have historians recording history over the entire 1400 years that are in question, ladies and gentlemen. And he tried to pretend that it wasn't happening. That just shows, ladies and gentlemen, that just shows to you how ignorant a Marxist commentary on the history of the church truly is. And notice, ladies and gentlemen, he tried to do the Marxist shuffle. He tried to shift it from religious causes to material causes, because the Marxists can only understand the world through a material paradigm. But, ladies and gentlemen, just as he admitted that he knows bugger all about what's happening in Nigeria, and shamefully and disgustingly and despicably tried to blame the Christian communities who are being butchered in Nigeria in their tens of thousands. That's how evil communism makes you. He tried to blame the Christians for being slaughtered. I'm now going to demonstrate that he knows bugger all about Islam either. Because, ladies and gentlemen, this is a book of fatwas, legal opinions that are produced in Islamic schools of law about how Islam is practiced. He tried to say that the jihads of the last 1400 years that have killed millions of Christians and enslaved millions of Christians had nothing to do with religion, ladies and gentlemen.
How many millions of
So,
Christians killed?
let me read to you what their manuals say, and maybe this ignorant revert can also learn about Islam as well.
Millions of Christians
So,
killed.
in the
How many
section
millions of
under jihad, it states the following.
Christians
Are you
enslaved?
listening? Jihad means war against non-Muslims.
War.
War against non-Muslims. Listen, jihad is a communal obligation when enough people perform it to successfully accomplish it. It is no longer obligatory upon others.
What are you going to hear?
If none of those concerned perform jihad and it does not happen at all, then everyone who is aware that it is obligatory is guilty of sin. Now, ladies and gentlemen, in this book of fiqh,
he's advocated
it quotes this, ladies and gentlemen. It quotes this. Bear with me, let me just find it.
Nothing you have said wouldn't apply to you.
The reasons that they give are to fight the idolaters utterly. They quote the hadith from Muhammad. I have been commanded to fight the people, that's the people of the book, until they testify that there is no God but Allah and Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. In other words, they are fighting us because we are not Muslims. And Enlightenment thinkers like this are ignorant about the religious motivation behind jihad. And they obfuscate about the persecution of Christians because their Marxism leads them to injustice. Go on.
I'll only make one more reply. That's this one. And then if you want to debate a bit later on, I'm happy to do so. I just need to go and speak myself. So the first reply, the reply I'll give is this. Bob has been saying there's been a religious war fought by Islam against Christianity for 1400 years. I heard Tommy Robertson say the same thing in America a couple of days ago.
Big up, Tommy.
Now I ask you this. In that period, was there not an inquisition in which European society would torture and maim in the name of Christianity their own people in the same way as they condemn the Muslims for doing in some backward Muslim countries today? For example,
For 1400 years.
ducking people into water, accusing them of being witches or being satanic agents. Europe was ruled by the Spanish Inquisition
Lies.
for decades, slaughtering millions of people. They also carried out conquests of dozens of countries, slaughtering the people there, also in the name of Christianity. So are you saying, my concern is not that that was done in the name of Christianity, but it should be your concern, because you have said that Christianity and Islam have been at war for 1400 years. I'm saying those wars were actually about material interests, and therefore they were not only religious wars, but the psychopathic element amongst them, the mad slaughter and murder in the name of religion, spurs on the worst elements of it. That I believe is true. And I'm sorry not to continue the debate now, but I'm happy to do so a little bit later on today, okay?
Yeah, come back and have a go. Look after yourself.
See you later.
Let me give you a gift
Another gift.
of always. Because unlike you, no, actually, you're well spirit. Sorry.
Later.
No, let me give you a gift. Let me give you a gift.
Some money?
No. No.
You got a book for me?
Yes, a little bit.
The Word of God.
No, it'll just a little bit. There you go.
Thank you very much.
You look after yourself.
See you later. Yeah?
See you later. Right, ladies and gentlemen. Let's be clear. This is the danger of the alt-left. They don't see facts square on. They don't weigh evidence square on. They filter evidence according to their liberal prejudices, ladies and gentlemen. You heard him with his own lips try to blame Nigerian Christians for their own slaughter. How much more evidence do you need about the evils that arise from Marxism? And notice he could not and would not and did not engage with the evidence from Islamic sources that showed the religious motivation behind 1400 years of jihad. Let me just quote to you, ladies and gentlemen, a commentary given by a Muslim scholar on Surah 9, Ayah 29, in which he says, and his name is Ibn Juzai, he says the following: the verse is a command to fight the people of the book because they claim Allah has a son. Does that sound like a religious reason for the war? Yes, it does. That, ladies and gentlemen, is something that all the liberal do-gooders and all the liberal progressives and all the alt-left refuse to wrestle with, because it does not suit their anti-Christian bias. And the fact of the matter is, for all you ignoramuses on the left, Christians have been subject to jihad, violence, for 400 years without missing a year. Not one in 1,400. Are you telling me that as Christians we shouldn't oppose Islam? That's like saying to a Jew they shouldn't oppose Nazism, ladies and gentlemen.
So Christians
The reality is,
Jews.
the reality is,
Oppose Jews.
the reality is Muslim converts like this
Should Christians
and Marxists like that
on the same
are
basis
united
set out
in their ignorance
Christians
and in their hatred of Christians and Jews, ladies and gentlemen. And whilst our Marxist friend at a personal level is not anti-Semitic, his ideological narrative emerges from an anti-Semitic narrative, ladies and gentlemen.
understand.
So, any questions on the topic?
Yes, Bob.
No, not taking questions from you anymore.
Oh dear, oh dear.
Right, any questions? Go on,
I
sir.
have a different question.
Yeah.
If that's all
Is it
right.
on the topic?
Not on the-
Then wait until later. I'll take questions on any topic. Any questions
We're not
on the
taking
topic,
questions
ladies
on
and
the topic.
gentlemen?
My question
Go on.
is directly on the
Those
topic.
Nigerians who call themselves Christians, they're not Christians, are they? If they're doing slaughter, they're not Christians.
Right. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, this demonstrates the danger of speaking in ignorance. What is happening is that the Christians in Nigeria are being slaughtered. But notice how ignorant the white left is. Notice how ignorant the English people are. And I want to say whose fault that is. Put your hand up if you're a Christian. It's your fault. You're the ones to blame, because you're the ones that are not organising to stand in solidarity with persecuted Christians around the world. And Nigerian Christians particularly bear the broadest shoulders, because they, amongst all people, should be the most informed and the most motivated, and they should be leading the rest of the international church in standing in solidarity with persecuted Christians in Nigeria. Any other questions on the topic? Go on.
I have a question. It's related but not related.
Taking on the topic.
Judaism.
I'll take it on the topic.
What is the topic?
Okay, maybe you need to wait to pick up what the topic is. Any questions on the topic?
What is the topic?
The persecution of Christians around the world, and the left's ignorance of standing up to it. Okay, ladies and gentlemen.
I have a question.
Any on the topic?
Yeah.
Go on.
Could they justify it through our actions in the past? Like, how, in their mind, they think because of colonialism, that there was a lot of English people, we took over India and all the other countries. Now they associate that with Christianity, but what would you say to
Right, I would say
Christianity?
I would say the following to this. Firstly, who did the Nigerians colonize? They were colonized. So the fact that Christians in Nigeria are being butchered in their tens of thousands has absolutely nothing to do with colonialism in Europe. It is not the fault of Nigerian Christians that they are being butchered or that they were colonized, and it is not an excuse to blur the lines between European colonialism and the butchering of Nigerian Christians. There is simply no justification. What it proves, though, is this, is that no one, absolutely no one, is going to stand up for the church until the church learns to stand up for itself, ladies and gentlemen. And so until we take the responsibility for standing up for persecuted Christians, no one else will. And so we must confront the Marxists with their duplicity, as you saw me do today.